would like to tell you about a phone call that totally changed the way that I view conflict. It was with my 12-year-old grandson, Colden, and it happened about at the beginning of 2023. Within the first few minutes of that phone call, I realized that everything that I had learned about conflict, about negotiating, wasn't just for work. It was for family, for community, for everyday life. You see, a year earlier, I had sold that tech company that I had founded, and I was CEO of for 14 years. I can assure you that there were plenty of opportunities for conflict, like every single day. I had become an expert in conflict management. Colden, in that phone call, challenged me to bring that expertise to somebody that I loved, who happens to be 12 years old. Before I get to that phone call, let me ask you a question. When I say that word conflict, how do you feel? Do you feel like a lion, where your instincts want you to attack? Do you feel the opportunity to compete, to fight, to win, to come out on top and for somebody else to lose? Or do you feel like a turtle, wanting to avoid conflict at all cost? Crawl into your shell, have the world pass you by. But you see, that's a great survival instinct, but it doesn't solve any problems. Everybody involved, none of their interests are taken care of. In fact, that's a lose-lose, because that conflict is sure to come back. Or are you a puppy dog? Are you so afraid the conflict is going to hurt the relationship that you're in that you just roll over on your back and you accommodate whatever the person wants or needs? Again, in that situation, I assure you, there's a winner and there's a loser. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can actually get excited about conflict because it signifies an opportunity for you to be creative, to learn, to grow in ways that you wouldn't have expected, to collaborate with somebody to problem solve, to come up with win-win solutions that actually strengthen relationships. I didn't want Colden to grow up thinking that the only way to deal with conflict was to win-lose. I wanted him to think of conflict as a puzzle that people can get together, solve together, and come up with win-win solutions. So let's get back to that call with Colden. It started out innocently enough. Hey, Colden, how you doing? Amazeballs, Saba. But it didn't quite click. So I dug in. Colden, that didn't sound like your normal amazeballs. What's going on? And he said, well, I am really frustrated with Mom. Mom happens to be my daughter, Tova. I've been asking her for weeks now to help me buy a new gaming computer. I know exactly what I want. I spec'd it out. It's my own money. And all she's saying is no, no, no. I can't get her to say anything else but no. In fact, it's gotten to the point where she's not even listening to me anymore. She's not talking anymore. I really felt for the kid. And I knew that I could help him. So I said, Colden, I think I can help you here, but first I need to ask Mom for permission. So I called up Tova, and I said, Tov, would you mind if I taught your son how to negotiate? And she said, oh, have at it, because what we've been doing right now is not working. Great. So I went back, and I put together a roadmap of how I would teach Colden about negotiating. And it was this agent framework. A, be aware that you're in a conflict and be intentional about how you're going to solve the problem. Ground yourself in your emotions first, hard for a 12-year-old, and then really ask yourself, what is it that your interests are? Then empathize with the other person. walk in their shoes and ask yourself, what do they need or want? What are their interests? Then finally you can get to the place where you can negotiate, which is nothing more than a conversation, a collaborative conversation to problem solve, to work things through. And then tie it all together. Seal the deal with an agreement so that you understand what you agreed to and that you have something to measure as you move forward. So let's talk to Colden about the fact that he should be aware that he's in a conflict. No doubt there, right? He's been trying for weeks, and all they're doing is yelling at each other. And finally, it ended up with Mom playing turtle. They started out as lions in Serengeti, and then she ended up as a turtle. Then I went to ground him, and I said, Colden, what really are your interests here? Why are you so frustrated here? And it came out. He was embarrassed when he went online because he was playing with an old gaming computer that was really slow. And all of his friends were just ridiculing him. So there was embarrassment. He wanted embarrassment to stop, and he wanted privacy. He wanted to play in his own game because there's a lot of banter amongst teens when they play online. Then I said, okay, let's empathize. Why do you think Mom is saying no? And this would actually be the breakthrough that this whole negotiation conflict needed. Why do you think Mom is saying no? And he said, well, she doesn't want me to waste my money. But I've been telling her I know exactly what I want, and it's mine. Colden, calm down. Remember, you have to ground yourself here. Why else might she be saying no, Colden? Well, maybe she's afraid I won't do my homework. Maybe she's afraid I won't get my chores done. Maybe she's afraid I'll get addicted to this. Maybe she's afraid I'll go to places on the web that I shouldn't be going to. Awesome, Colden. These are all great reasons why Mom is saying no to. Now your job is to take each one of those no's, come up with a solution for her that will turn her around and make her say yes. Do your homework. Schedule a meeting with Mom, by the way, not like after a bad day at work. Pick your battle there and calmly talk to her. So they were ready to negotiate. They did. They went to that next step. And they went back and forth for a little bit, and they came up with a great compromise. Mom was going to take the family computer, which was in her office, which was inaccessible to Colden, and she was going to move it into the guest bedroom. That would work out well, because then Colden had access and he had privacy. Then they tied it all together in an agreement, and they were going to spend a little bit of time making sure that they built trust with one another in this compromised agreement. Colden needed to show that he balanced his gaming time with his responsibilities, because Mom wasn't 100% trusting this little kid. A few weeks later, he proved his mettle, and not only did Mom let him buy his gaming computer, but he actually built one. He brought it into his bedroom, converted his closet into a gaming cave, and that was a win for him, that was a win for Mom, and that was a win for me, because this was the first instance of the negotiating agent framework in action and working. And then the entrepreneur in me kicked back in. I'm retired, but you can't get rid of that. And I started to say, well, that worked. We've got conflict in our society, in our community. How many negotiating agents can I train? How many conflicts can each one of them turn from conflict into opportunity? So that's when I approached KJ Hill, who was the founder and executive director of ReCity Networking here in downtown Durham. ReCity is a co-working facility that houses 40 socially driven organizations, most of them nonprofits, concerned with improving the health, the welfare, the safety of all of us in this community, but mostly the underserved population. And I would sign up as a member to that organization, and he gave me the opportunity to incubate as a laboratory the negotiating agent framework. 1 year later, I had conducted 8 workshops. I graduated 100 people. 2 mentees that I meet with on a regular basis in the organization. And I'm getting to meet most of the other 40 organizations that are there. You can imagine over the course of that last year, I've had dozens of opportunities to coach people through conflicts of all sorts. I wanted to talk to you about one in particular today, because it's one that wasn't a big conflict, but it had a big upside. And when you start getting excited about conflict, I know that's a crazy thing, but when you start getting excited about confronting conflict, you can actually add a lot of value to the community. So there was Re-City. They had a 3,500 square foot event space that they were charging $500 an hour for. There was another nonprofit in Raleigh called You Call This Yoga, who wanted a place to come to Durham to give free yoga, especially because the winter was coming. But they had no money. So you see where the conflict was there. So I applied the negotiating agent framework to the 2 organizations. I brought them together. And I said, I made them aware of each other. I grounded them in their mutual interests because they were a little bit different. They were easy to empathize with one another because they're socially driven themselves. And then we negotiated pretty quickly a nice agreement about when we could have classes. They tied it all together in a rental agreement, and a few weeks later we held our first free yoga class in downtown Durham. Every Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, I go with my mat. I look around, there's 40 people that are very Durham people. All sizes, shapes, colors, genders, number of tattoos, age, I'm typically the oldest. And I marvel at that was just such a simple conversation, and take a look at the good that we've done here in this community. And that was essentially 1,600 hours worth of free yoga in the last year that is improving the health, emotional, physical health of folks in our community. What better win was that? A few weeks ago, my granddaughter, Reese, Colden's younger sister, rings me up, and we're chatting. In the middle of that conversation, she says, Saba, can you help me negotiate with Mom? That brought chills then, and it still brings me chills now when I think about that moment, because that wasn't just a family moment that I was having. I was seeing the future. I was seeing a world where conflict didn't have to be a battleground, where conflict can actually be a bridge. I was seeing a world where win-win wasn't just an option, it was the norm. So this is my challenge to you. The next time you feel a surge of frustration, of anger, of fear welling up within you, before you start an argument with a coworker, before you snap at somebody that you love, before you shut down a difficult conversation with a friend, pause. Take a breath. And ask yourself, is this relationship important to me? Am I being a lion, a turtle, a puppy dog? And then choose differently. Choose to be a negotiating agent. Choose to collaborate. Choose to convert conflict to connections. Because when you do that, and when you teach somebody else to do that, you're not just solving a problem. You're changing the way the world handles conflict. And that, to me, is the ultimate win-win. Thank you.